Hi, my name is Bethany, and today I want to talk to you about what spoon theory is. Thank you so much to my patrons for voting on today's video topic. I've been hearing in the autism and disability communities things like, if you have enough spoons, can you? Or, I don't have enough spoons for this. And throughout seeing it being used, I've surmised that it has something to do with like energy or like the ability to like put up with stuff or something like that, but I not really looked officially into what spoon theory is, and I thought I would do that today with you guys. I also came across people who would call themselves spoonies, but it does appear that this is specifically for those who have like autoimmune diseases and illnesses and stuff like that, rather than just in general disability, but that's just what I'm gathering from that. So spoon theory appears to have originated with someone named Christine Miserandino. Hopefully I'm saying that right. I'm not really good at names. But it was basically from a story that they told to their friend, trying to help them understand what it's like to live with lupus without just saying like, this is the list of, symptoms or problems that I go through. I would like to encourage you to read her story directly, and that will be linked in the description box below. Essentially, the idea is that healthy people, or maybe allistic or whatever you want to call it, people, kind of live life with an unlimited amount of spoons, or maybe they live life as though they have an unlimited amount of spoons. They seem to have a lot at the very least. Of course, that sounds really weird, but Miss Sarandino was saying that basically a spoon would be kind of like a representation of a piece of yourself throughout the day. People will start out with only kind of a small set of spoons per day, and you have to decide and make very specific decisions on what you can and can't do today and make it to the end of the day, hopefully with at least a spoon or a piece of yourself left, so that you're not maybe going into a burnout or being so overly exhausted that it becomes detrimental to you in other ways. She explains that sure, you could try to borrow against tomorrow's spoons, but that would mean, of course, that tomorrow you'd have even less than you had to work with today, and that could lead to even more problems. Being mindful of like all the little things to do with their day, from the effort it takes to take a shower and get up out of bed and either drive or find a ride or whatever, all those little things takes a special effort for people with chronic illnesses and also for some with disabilities. This kind of phenomenon, I think, for autistic people who don't also have like a comorbid chronic illness, can be mostly attributed to executive dysfunctioning, where having issues with your executive function makes it so much more than, say, just a shower. That concept of all of this energy, all of these pieces of me are being required for a task that someone else can just casually do as part of their day, that kind of concept kind of plays into this spoon theory. In that sense, I think that it has been extrapolated somewhat to be able to be used for the disability and autistic communities, not just specifically for those with lupus or chronic illness or invisible illnesses, etc. It's kind of like the mental, physical, emotional capabilities of a person for that day compared against the amount of capacity. We have a certain amount of capacity for those things, and understanding how much each task or each thing costs of our capacity. I don't know if that makes sense. Hopefully it does. Maybe someone who's perfectly healthy and isn't really suffering from any illnesses or anything or disorders, a shower, that's not a big deal. Maybe their morning routine would be a spoon. They have to go through, getting up, taking a shower, getting their clothes on, getting their breakfast together, and getting out the door. That might take a piece. Whereas for someone else, that capacity is going to cost them a lot more than, the person who that just cost a spoon or one thing for, if that makes sense. The reason this can be really important for those with like invisible disabilities and illnesses is because it's hard for people to understand when you might not have physically done much, or there isn't much to look at to say, oh, I've achieved a lot. Because for you, it took a lot for them. The amount that you didn't take much for them. And understanding that people who have disabilities, people who have illnesses, are dealing with a whole different set of things than someone who doesn't. So trying to kind of explain how you have to be mindful of those sorts of things, or you're going to run into burnout, or you're going to just not be able to function. Obviously, burning yourself out to no longer being able to function every day is going to have a detrimental effect on your health in a variety of ways. Another aspect of Miss Sarandino's story for the origin of spoon theory is that there was a mentioned time set aside to feel bad about how long it took you to do those simple things that should have been able to be done in a few minutes. And I think that's something that is important for us to maybe be aware of or have this conversation about, because you shouldn't have to feel guilty. Like, you're wasting your time and energy on feeling guilty about things just because someone else can do it easier, or someone else can do it faster, or someone else can do it better. Who cares? They're a different person than you are. And it's hard to say that, because not only do we often hold ourselves to the standard of someone else, but other people do as well. And that's one of the things that was so important to me when I found out about autism, because I was constantly not understanding how I was such a trash human being, because I couldn't reach the same standard of what I thought I should be able to reach, what other people thought I should be able to reach, because it just didn't make sense, because I was perfectly fine, right? Like, I shouldn't have these problems. All of these things shouldn't be exhausting for me. It shouldn't be difficult for me to do this, but it was. And I think being able to have this conversation and understand that, yeah, some people struggle more with the things that seem simple to others, and that's okay because they're a different human being, is important, because at least then we can eliminate, hopefully, at least a little bit of the wasted time spent feeling guilty or bad because we're not someone else, or because we have a disability, or because we're ill in some way, or have a disorder, or whatever else it might be. Now, in reference to like online, maybe even requests, spoons tends to be more specifically about like emotional and mental capacity. So like, can you handle engaging with people about something? Can you handle doing this task that might add to your list of things? Can you handle trying to be understanding to people who are being belligerent? Those sorts of things tends to be what they refer to as spoons in like the online community, even though spoons obviously is originated as a way to explain kind of like the whole experience. And on another note, I just wanted to say again that it does appear that Spoonie specifically applies to those with chronic illnesses, not just people who can also identify with the concept of spoon theory. So like for me, I do not have a chronic illness. I don't have that as a comorbidity, which I'm thankful for. And so I really wouldn't refer to myself as a spoonie, because that's not really for me. But there are some people who are autistic and also have chronic illnesses who might refer to themselves as such. I hope this video helped explain a little bit about what spoon theory is, where it originated, and how it's kind of used to explain the disabled or chronic illness kind of experience for people who might not experience those things. I highly encourage you, again, to read the original story. Obviously, that would be the most helpful in more completely understanding the concept and everything like that. So at the very least, I hope this video at least introduced you to the idea and also where it came from and how to find out more. Anyway, thank you for watching today's video. If you enjoyed it, go ahead and drop a like and let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy autism related content from me, feel free to hit that subscribe button. I do upload content every Thursday at 4 p.m. Central Standard Time. I hope that you're having a wonderful week, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!